Hello, everyone. Chris here, and welcome back to episode 2 of I Am the Hammer. This time it's Trial by Fire as I take you through my recent experience at the Saffron Slam GT. Let's do this. So, welcome back to this brand new series in which I am talking through my experience with Grey Knights as I kind of learn the army and develop, hopefully, as a player with them. In the last episode, I spoke about the strengths and weaknesses that I felt the army had, and I gave you the list that I was going to be taking to the Saffron Slam GT the weekend just gone. So, in this episode, I'm going to be reminding you of my list. I'm going to go through the matches. Got a bit of a reputation for going a bit too much detail into games. So I'm going to try and do each match in about 5 minutes, but I'm going to focus on things related to the matchup and my army rather than kind of going through the every blow by blow. Obviously, there are certain moments which are quite important to the game, but I'll try and be as good as I can. Afterwards, I'll talk about my takeaways from the event. And then, as I said in the last episode, I'm going to have a matrix going, and I'm going to be able to update that matrix based on how I feel those matchups are. I've got 3 units which I think might be worth a look at, which not many people are necessarily talking about. So I'm going to highlight those for you guys. And then finally, I'm going to show off my Luxembourg Scrim list, which is where I'm trying something a bit different to my most recent list. So, Saffron Slam GT. So, this event is a bit different because it's thematic terrain. So it's not your standard UKTC or GW or WTC terrain. So you don't know what you're getting. The missions are also a slightly different combination. So you're more likely to see things like sites of power, ritual, which you don't normally see at a normal UKTC event. That being said, I wanted to try 5 Dread Knights, so I took 5 Dread Knights. So I've got 2 Grandmasters, 1 with Sigil. I've got Drago of 10 Terminators. I've got Solo Tech Marine. I've got 2 units of 5 Strikes, 1 unit of 5 Interceptors, and then 3 normal Nemesis Dread Knights. Okay, so that's the list. Going in, I felt it was a good list. I played a couple of practice games and won them both. And so I was thinking, you know what? We'll be okay. So, round 1, I drew Chaos Space Marines. So, first of all, I have in all the other games apart from this one, I took one photo just to show the board. I mean, the game was in various states, but there's always something I can be referring to. I don't actually have this on this one, so I apologize. But basically, we had buildings in our deployment zone. And the middle was wide open, barring a ruin right in the center, or some sort of crate type thing in the center, which you could hide behind and hold the middle objective. The rest of the board was kind of filled with barbed wire or electric fencing, which you could move through, but was -1 to hit. So all the shooting lanes were -1 to hit, essentially, which is not great for Dread Knights, let's say. So anyway, it was diagonal deployment, it was sticky objectives, and it was purge the foe. So going second is important because it's obviously hold more and kill more. His list, he'd gone like Iron Warriors is his theme. It looks really great. He had kind of 2 punchy blobs, one of like Warp Talons or Raptors, I can't remember, and then one of Legionnaires. And then he had lots of vehicles. So he had like a Forge Fiend Undivided, he had a couple of Nurgle Vindicators, a Venom Crawler, a Predator, a Rhino, that sort of thing. Initial thoughts going into this game, CSM, they're not good anymore. But then you look at the list, you're like, well, actually, those Vindicators absolutely have the potential to one-shot Dread Knight, so that's kind of a bit concerning. So I was like, well, as long as I can hide from those and deal with the rest as it kind of comes at me and play my tricks, I should be absolutely fine. So how did it play out? Well, unfortunately, I went first, which wasn't great. But it did mean I could move up to the middle of the board, hide and sticky it. and I could stick in my natural expansion objective in the top corner. And I was kind of sat there going, okay, well, I'm not going to kill anything, so that's not great for Purge, but I scored my cards, and everything was, which was signals and cleanse, everything was fine. He then couldn't really do much either because I'd hidden, so he moved everything forward, and it was time for me to try and start picking apart these things. Now, at this point, I drew attempting target and capture enemy outpost. The way I could score capture enemy outpost was to fire and fade interceptors on after killing the cultists on there. Unfortunately, the only angle I could get to do that involved me being seen by a Vindicator, which overwatched and killed 4 of them as they dropped down. Lessons learned there. Vindicators kill quite a lot in Overwatch when they can Dark Pact, is what it is. My other play for getting cleanse was not cleanse, sorry, attempting target, which was his natural expansion objective. Was I charged 5 strikes into 3 Nurglings and I was going to kill them and then consolidate onto the objective and out OC him as long as I had like 3 on there, which was doable. Turns out 5 strikes don't kill 3 Nurglings. I just didn't do the maths. I just assumed, and that -1 to hit's really important. So that didn't go very well. In terms of killing, I was able to drop the Rhino that he'd moved forward and kill most of the Legionnaires. So there was 1 Legionnaire left, and then Lucius and Master of Executions in that unit. That was it. I had like a 10-inch charge with the Dreadnought. I was like, I'll just roll it. Who knows? Let's see what happens. Rolled the 12. In he goes. They have fights first. He nearly died. And then I killed a Legionary and Lucius, I think. So I've had to put myself a bit in the open here. And I'm like, oh, let's see how it goes. This could be a bit risky. And he went quite aggressive, pushed things forward. And the theme of this game, I should say, is that Vindicator that overwatched the Interceptors. He rolled a 6 on the number of shots. That's 9 shots. The first time he shot on his turn 2, he rolled a 6 for the number of shots. The second time he fired with the other Vindicator, he rolled a 6 on the number of shots. My maths was based on him not rolling 6s, and he kept rolling 6s. But all of a sudden, so I lose 1 Dread Knight, which is almost dead already. I lose a 2nd Dread Knight on just from scratch. Then the 3rd Dread Knight is left on 1 wound. All right, oh my word. I've also lost the strikes in the middle and those interceptors, and I'm starting to worry a bit. So I'm not in a great position. So I think it's time for the Terminators to come out to play. So they move out to the middle and get ready for to charge into his Demon Prince that's come out into the middle. And I'm going to kill that, move on to the middle objective, tank the shooting, and then push on forwards. That's the plan. What actually happens is those Terminators do not kill a Demon Prince. Not quite sure how 540 odd points of Terminators plus Drago failed to kill a Demon Prince, but is what it is. And now they're stuck in the middle, at which point he drops down his Forge Fiend. The Forge Fiend picks up 5 Terminators, which with full rerolls is fair enough. But the main issue was, I can't remember what they're called. It's either the Warp Talons or Raptors. There's just a little 5-man of these guys, not a big brick. And he killed 4 Terminators. It was 20 attacks, and he got 22 wounds through because of Dark Pact and Twin Linked. Horrendous. And I just, failed half of them, and that's 4 dead Terminators. And that was kind of game. To be honest with you, I just lost so much stuff. I didn't have the ability to interact. He was now holding the middle, so he was always going to get that hold more. So it didn't really I didn't have much chance of playing around it. So it finished 92-79 to him, as you can see. He was able to consistently score his cards. And I scored my cards to a reasonable extent, but primary was an issue. So that's game 1. Game 2, Chaos Knights. Now, that's quite hard to judge as a game. He did have only had 8 knights. He had lots of demonic allies, just in terms of like Bloodletters, Hounds, and Nurglings. Obviously, his Harriet launches and stuff don't really do anything, but he can out OC me. Now, it's quarters deployment, it's scrambler field, so I can't drop onto objectives. And it's vital ground, which means there's no objective in the middle. And this was an interesting one because immediately I think, oh, well, obviously I just take homers and bring it down. But the thing with homers is it's actually quite hard to. You don't really want to be in the middle, do you? But conversely, he doesn't want to be in the middle either. So him having to come and deal with my homers, forces him away. There's a special mention on this mission, which is the board. If you have a look at the board, you'll see this is what we call the ravine. Those are all hills in the middle. You can't pass through them. Ignore where we're at in this game. This is like turn 3 or something. You can't pass through them. Well, I can't. He can with his strat, so he can just walk through them. I cannot, which completely shapes the game. And obviously, you can hide behind these, so there is something there. So I don't really know how this matchup's going to go, but I'm figuring I can teleport around the rocks, so that might help me out. So the way it plans out is I get to go first again. Yay, lucky me. I go and send straight down the middle for deploy homers. And that's my turn. Because I want to wait for him to move out so I can then counter move and shoot him, which is exactly what I do. He kind of like spreads himself out. He's loaded the top end of the board and kind of pushes out that way. He decides not to go for the middle and leave my chaps there to homers, and it's over to me. And what I decide to do here is I'm going to try and pick off a weak flank. So I think his the bottom right hand side of this picture is weaker. So what I do is I put my Dread Knights over there. I can get 4 over there. I also deep strike down Drago's unit. They charge onto that objective. I drop another knight down to like really close to being nearly dead, and we're doing okay. I have left my home field a bit open, so he kind of pushes around there. And on my turn 3, there's just a really, really annoying moment where there's a carnivore ready to be smashed up by a Dread Knight, which is like 3.1 inches away, and I roll a double 1. And I don't have a CP to re-roll it. And so I fail this charge, and it's just all of a sudden there's one more knight than I was expecting on the board. This is a really close game, really back and forth. I kind of locked down the bottom right-hand objective. He's locked down the top left objective. He's pushing onto my home field consistently, which is kind of helping to stop me from scoring my 2 points for holding my backfield. And yeah, and because I've not got bottom of turn and the scores are super, super tight the whole time through, I'm getting a bit concerned that I'm just going to get done in at the end. The one advantage I have is that he's not scoring his cards very well. And I can obviously be quite reliably scoring homers and bring it down. And the game boils down to the final turn. I've kind of rung and locked down this bottom right objective to try and stop him from getting good end of game scoring. I've killed enough stuff that I've got my home field back. And it comes down to his cards. And he draws capture enemy outpost and secure no man's land. So he can only hold one of the secure no man's land, and capture enemy outpost. He kind of launches a carnivore forward towards my lines. I'm not entirely sure it was a 14-inch move that he made, but it turned out he needed a 9-inch charge to get into my home field to give him a chance, and he failed that charge with a reroll. So in the end, I managed to sneak it 61-56. I don't think I played this game badly. I think I played it reasonably well. What we'll find out later is I played some games where I played really badly. In terms of understanding this matchup, the cannons are obviously wounding him on 4s, and that is really, really swingy, as is his saves. I think my overall play was fine. I did miss one homers out in the middle where I just had to focus on killing stuff. So yeah, it was an interesting game. Chaos Knights always set me on edge. just because they're walking through walls. They've got such good threat ranges. Obviously, tank shot could be a problem. So yeah, but I think it's a pretty close matchup in general. So I'm 1-1. And we move on to World Eaters. So we've got diagonal deployment. In this mission, it's going to be CP rerolls and card draws are an extra CP. And it's the rituals you can make lots of primary objectives. His list is a pretty standard list. Angron and friends, like it's exactly what you'd expect from a World Eaters match. And in this game, I'm thinking, well, he has to charge at me. I have Mr. Deimos. I have lots of shooting. He has no shooting. I have some combat. He has decent combat. So surely it's advantage me, right? And I do genuinely believe it is a good matchup for Grey Knights. Doesn't necessarily always play out like that, especially when Angron has something to say about it, which he certainly does in this game. This is quite a fun game. Played into a guy called Dan, like lovely guy, had a really fun game. So here again, here's the board. Again, ignore where we're at. This is turn 2. I want to say, yeah, this is turn 2. So in terms of deployment, I kind of have 5 strikes right at the front, just screening out in case he goes first, and everything else is pinned back because it doesn't really matter where I am because I get to teleport. He deploys reasonably aggressively. For the third time in a row, I get to go first. Yay, lucky me. I don't really want to. This army doesn't play first turn very well. So I send out 5 strikes to the middle and just measure out all his charge distances because he doesn't have advance and charge this turn. So I can control, I know where he's going. Right? And I've basically put the strikes in the middle as bait. Okay, I'm saying, look, hey Angron, why don't you come over and play? So he moves 10 cultists towards the middle and says, do you want to miss the Demos? And if you look at the objective where those Terminators and Dreadnought are at the moment, at this point, there's nothing on there. I've created it. And I've got 5 strikes just in the middle. So he moves the Jackals forward and says, do you want to miss? And I'm like, no, not yet. I want to see where Angron's coming. Is he coming? And he goes, well, I'm World Eaters, right? So boom, Angron appears where that objective in the middle bottom is. And I'm like, okay, well, now I'm missed. So I missed just 6 inches away because I want to try and keep the primary if I can. Angron's got like an 8-inch charge. I'm like, well, if you make it, cool, I lose the strikes. If you don't, cool, I get primary. But if you do make it, Angron's right next to me, which is perfect. He also charges in with a Juggernaut. The 5 strikes die. He makes the Angron charge. And I'm like, right, okay, well, we're going to kill Angron now. So I pick up the Terminators. They line up ready to charge in. I line up all my other shooting into Angron. And we pick up the Jackals. And Drago charging in almost one-shots Angron himself. And Angron's dead, as is the Juggernaut. So I'm like, excellent. This is a good place. And now what we've got here on screen is his turn 2. Okay. So as you can see, he's pushed forward. He's got his berserkers with Khan there ready to charge in. He's got then some exalted and the invocators charging into interceptors who've also made another objective. So I'm like, well, I weather this turn, then I pick up the final parts of the legionaries because I'm thinking the berserkers charge in, they're going to kill like 3 Terminators. I then pick most of them back. I then pick up the rest of the berserkers and some of the start working my way through the exalted. And then he kills a little bit more, and then I basically kill all the exalted, and it's game over. That's how I kind of felt it was. So I felt like in a really good position. So he did drop another unit of exalted in, and they did charge into the Dread Knight, which is on to the on that objective. So he did make that charge. So he hit me. Khan picked up Drago because he wanted to kill Drago. So he picked up Drago and 1 or 2 Terminators, and the rest of the berserkers killed like 1 Terminator maybe. And on my punchback, I think I killed like 7 berserkers or something. And the exalted didn't drop the Dread Knight. Um, at this point, none of us are scoring primary, but now I'm like, right, okay, here we go. So I'm in a great position here. Of course, he has his blood gold dice rolls. So he's praying to Khorne, please, Khorne, give me Angron back. And he rolls the dice. Ah, there's only 2 6s. What a relief. No Angron. Oh, but what's this? He gets to re-roll one of them. She's got jackals on an objective. Rolls a 6. Angron's now back. And he's going to rapid ingress straight into my backfield because that's the logical place. And you know when you can just feel everything just seep away and you're like, oh no. So I'm like, well, I got to go aggressive here. I've got to try and clear as much of the mid-board before Angron hits me. So I managed to pick up the Mauler Fiend. I pick up the Legionary, the Berserkers and Khan, sorry. And I pick up Invocatus. So at this point, I've also done what I think is a clever thing. I've deep struck down one of my other Dread Knights in the bottom right hand corner of that board. So I'm going to shoot into the 8-bound on kind of which are creating an objective where they were by that tree. Then I'm going to try the charge into the spawn. I'm just going to threaten to steal his primary from behind and just put a bit of pressure on there. Because at that time, none of us are scoring primary, right? We just keep hammering each other off the primary. We get to towards the end of his movement phase, and I look across and I'm like, why is a Dread Knight there? I don't understand why a Dread Knight's there. And then I suddenly remember that I put him there and I just never shot him or anything. And this is what I mean. Like sometimes I just played badly. I made stupid mistakes, and this was one of them. He was in a corner, so I got him. My opponent very kindly said, well, why don't you just say you investigated signals with him? I was like, oh, okay, fine. But yeah, that was sad times because that could have been quite handy. So anyway, Angron then comes across, and this is the important moment in the game. And it's a bit of a knock-on effect from me never shooting the Dread Knight into those Exalted 8-bound. I've got a Dread Knight on that bottom objective in the middle. He dies to 2 units of Exalted 8-bound, one of which should have been not there, or at least weakened. And that, I literally died to the last save as well, so he's dead. Angron splits his attack 4 and 5, manages to get through 2 on 2 different Dread Knights, and then he rolls like a 6 and a 4 and a 6 and a 5 and just one-shots them both. So I lose 3 Dread Knights in one turn. And that's kind of like, that's quite a big problem. And that is, in fact, all she wrote, because I now don't really have a way of killing Angron. I'm not going to score any more primary in this game. And Angron then goes off and bops another Dread Knight later on in the game, and that's it. So it ends up 73-47. As you can see, primary for me wasn't great. Primary for him wasn't great, apart from the fact that he had bottom of turn. I mean, the main issue was for me is secondaries. I did not score my secondaries well at all. I made a mistake turn 1. Capture enemy outpost on like from turns 2 onwards into World Eaters is fantastic, but I drew it first. Engaging on fronts, I kept on to because I was like, well, surely I'll be in his one of the quarters in his half in turn 2, and I just wasn't, and so that held me back a bit. So yeah, I didn't quite get that right. I still believe Wild Eaters is a good matchup. I mean, if Angron doesn't come back, it's an amazing matchup. I just win that game. If he does, you just need to make some allowances. Bit inexperienced, I guess, in that game. But yeah, I do believe it's a good matchup for Grey Knights. Right. So, game 4. I'm due to play Hypercrypt Necrons, and then he pulls out. So I get drawn into Deathwatch, as we all know, who are absolutely awful. So this should be a nice, easy win. We've got table quarters. It's minefield, so advancing is a 6, but you have to roll the dice, right? So I never have to take that mortal wound. And sites of power, so that's characters on objectives. So his list, it's a very interesting list. It's a very drawish list, I would say. So he's got a big blob of Eradicators, a big blob of Centurions, and a big blob of Heavy Interceptors. So he's got 3 Inceptor units. So obviously, they're still great. And then he's got a few like Assault Marine squads and a Command squad and stuff. So all the objectives are hidden behind a building. So if we look at the board here, this is our deployment. So you can see all the objectives are hidden. And on top of that, the middle objective is in fact that entire statue, which is, it's pretty cool. But it makes for an interesting situation here. So again, I hide all my stuff. As you can see here, I've got in the left-hand side, I've got those scouts which can scout move up behind that building. I've got interceptors in the bottom right-hand corner ready to do something for points. And for the first time, I get to go second. So his heavy intercessors move towards the bottom right-hand side of the board. He sticks his command squad with the character on the middle for sites of power to start trying to score that. And away we go. I try to play out my skin here. And I'm really careful. I'm so tempted to pick up my Terminators, deep strike them on the bottom right-hand corner, charge into the heavy intercessors. If I kill them, great. If I don't, great. They're tagged. He doesn't have combat threat, really. It's going to hurt them. And then if he falls back, I can just mist away. I'm so tempted to do that, but it just feels risky. My confidence is a bit shook from the previous day. So I just put my Terminators with Drago in the top left-hand corner and just lock that down for sites of power. My Sigil Dread Knight goes over to the bottom right-hand corner because I have engaged on all fronts. And what that means is then if he wants to come onto that objective, I can mist away. And if he doesn't, then and he chooses to shoot me, I can just Sigil away. So I feel like I've done that turn quite well. He then kind of responds by picking up the Centurion Devastators. And what I didn't realize was if you look at the bottom there, you can see there is a line of sight going from that bottom right objective into my deployment zone. I assumed it was blocked off. It is not. So he conga lines out his Centurion Devastators and can see one of my Dread Knights, which is just sat there in the place I thought was safe. So always check the angles, boys and girls. And he leaves it on like 3 wounds with the las cannons. So after armor of contempt. So I'm like, okay, that's fine. So then I think, well, how do I want to counterpunch? He's screened out my me being able to get to the interceptors. The Centurion Devastators. So what do I want to do? Okay, so what I decided to do is I want to try and start working on this command squad in the middle. So top left-hand corner, I put 2 Dread Knights. I move my 5 strikes forward, advance them, so that if he drops down the Eradicators, they can't shoot the Dread Knights. I forget about rapid ingress, which causes a few issues as he starts to measure out whether he could rapid ingress safely and then move out and shoot them. Meanwhile, the interceptors go on a jolly to try and kill the Calidus. If I can kill the Calidus, that's good. And then if I kill the Calidus, which is sat on the bottom right-hand corner objective, kill that and then consolidate into the Centurions, job's a good one because he can't then use the Deathwatch strat to pick them up. So tagging stuff against Deathwatch is really good. Obviously, I forget about Heroic Intervention, which he does. And he heroically intervenes with the Heavy Intercessor blob. I managed to kill the Calidus, but the Interceptors die. So I don't get the tag off, which is a shame. Now, we come to embarrassing mistake number 1 in this game, of which there are a couple. I had screened out the bottom left-hand corner of my board with 5 strikes. I'd been a bit lazy. I'd been like, well, they probably don't fit in here, so just to try and cheat and get extra room, get extra space up the board. And then clearly at some point, I then readjusted them without thinking. And what I'd actually ended up doing was leaving a nice Eradicator-sized hole. So boom, back left-hand corner, 6 Eradicators. Boom, 2 units of Inceptors. Centurion devs line up a Dread Knight. And I'm like, oh no, this has gone horribly wrong. Because I'm about to have lost both units of strikes and my interceptors. And what I find with this army is you get to turn 2 and you've it's what I found in the World Eaters game. I screened really well with the strikes and interceptors, but then they're dead. And then how do you score your secondary cards for turns 3, 4, 5? So it is a bit of a problem I found with this list. So anyway, you know what they say, it's better to be lucky than good. The Eradicators made my Dread Knight on 5 wounds because it'd been healed up take 7 4-up invulnerables, and I passed 7 4-up invulnerables. It was pretty disgusting. I had to apologise a lot. He drew an assassinate. I'd been able to mist away my Tet Marine to safety, so he wasn't going to be able to get that. That's why I put my Sigilled Grandmaster in his backfield to kill 4 Acolytes on an objective because I wanted to kill something on an objective for overwhelming force. So he has a massive whiffer of a turn, basically. He does drop a Dread Knight in the top corner, top left-hand corner. And now I'm in this position where I'm like, all right, well, time to come back. He's forgotten to bring down his 3rd unit of Inceptors to screen out my ability to counter hit in my deployment zone, which was his mistake. That was what he was like, I can't believe I've forgotten to do this. And it gave me a shot at killing them all. And I killed all the Eradicators and I killed all the Inceptors. So that was really good. The game kind of just plays out in a pretty standard way from here. I have bottom of turn, which is really good, and we come into the final turn, and I've got only 3 units left. I've got 2 Dread Knights and the Terminators. My second major mistake had been turn 4, I teleported my Tet Marine over to my natural expansion objective just so I had a safe unit there to score sites of power with or something, and then I could use the Terminators. What I failed to do was not put him in the corner, and I left him so that the Centurion Devastators could move and see the edge of his backpack. Such lazy, appalling play, really frustrating, and he probably got last cannon to death. So that was rubbish. But yeah, it ended up me needing basically any cards at the end of the game. And I drew, I want to say Cleanse and Investigate Signals. And so, because I was 1 point behind, I just cleansed on one of the objectives which I was holding, because the 2 Dread Knights, one of which was a character, and the Terminators could just get my primary, get my sites of power, and get me my cleanse. And that was jobs a gunning, 82-80 win. That was sweaty. George was a really good player and a really nice opponent. It was a really great tactical game. But yeah, it was Death Watch. They're not that bad. And then finally, I got to play the Mirror, which isn't exactly ideal when you're trying to get Matrix predictions, because obviously it's just a draw, generally. So it's diagonal deployment. You get an extra card, and it's Scorched Earth. This is the map. This is right near the end of the game. So going into this game, my thought process is, well, we're both getting extra cards, right? We're getting 3 cards, which means that we're both going to max secondaries. Like, it's basically impossible for us not to, as long as we're not complete lemons. So we're going to get 40. So it's going to come down to primary. So primary is the big deal. So I kind of set up Terminators and Strikes in the top left, and I'm going to say, right, I'm going to keep scoring 10s, and then I'm going to try and knock him down to 5s. That's my goal. Very important in the Grey Knight matchup. I get to go second. So he doesn't really know what to do, so he shunts forward. He does get 15 on his primary, on his secondaries. And that's my go. And I do exactly his plans, move everything out, don't kill anything apart from Calidus, which had come to my objective. He's got like a Terminator librarian. He's got a librarian and he's got a Calidus compared to my 5th Dread Knight. That's basically how the list works. And I very quickly realise, firstly, Dread Knight, bottom left-hand corner, I've not put an inch away from the wall so he can charge it. And second of all, I have not screened out all 10 Terminators launching themselves at my home field objective. I panic mist of Demos the middle strikes to try and get across and block that off, but I don't quite manage it. So boom, Drago and 10 Terminators arrive there. And they charge into my Dreadnought on my home field. They don't kill it, because you couldn't get everyone in, but it's not great. So I'm like, right, well, I can do the same to you as well. So my Drago heads over into his deployment zone, which is wide open. And my turn 2 is incredible. 2 Dread Knights pick up one of his Dread Knight in shooting. I pick up another 5-man strike squad. It's always important against Grey Knights, obviously, to pick up those mission scoring pieces. I lock down a load of objectives, and I've got 2 Dread Knights, and 10 Terminators in his backfield, ready to charge into the Dread Knights on his home field objective, and I'm going to get them all in, and one of them's going to die. And at that point, I'm like, this is game. I have won the game. 6-inch charge from Drago, roll a 5. Okay, well, that's fine. I have failed every single Drago charge this entire event. The first time, every single one. So, reroll, roll a 4. Right, okay, well, this is suddenly not looking so rosy. 9-inch charge on the Dread Knight, fail it. This went from me winning the game to, this is annoying. I was able to clear out his 5 strikes in the middle, so I have picked up a lot of his scoring pieces. He decides to then try and deal with my Dread Knight and Terminators in the backfield. That's so hard to do. And he puts 3 Dread Knights into one of my Dread Knights. I do Armor of Contempt, and I'm left on 1 wound. I'm like, yes. And he goes, I've got the Tech Marine. What, Tech Marine's pistol? I think we'll be okay. Oh, it's hit. Oh, he rolled a 6 to wound. Oh, I've rolled a 1 on my save, and I don't have any CP to reroll it. Okay, I've lost a Dread Knight to a pistol. Isn't that lovely? Then the 2 Dread Knights charge into the Terminators. He doesn't tank shocks. He doesn't have the CP, and they just don't really do anything, as you'd expect, because Dread Knights aren't actually that great in combat. From then on, I'm fine. The game's done, and we kind of play it out. And as you can see here, this is right near the end of the game. He basically ended the game with his Sigil Dread Knight, a Tech Marine, and the Terminators. I ended the game with 3 Dread Knights, a Strike Squad, an Interceptor Squad, another Strike Squad. They were all like on 2-3 men, so Terminators. I ended up with all the stuff, so in the end, it was all good. And it still ended up close, as I said. We know we'd basically maxed our cards very, very quickly. But I won on the primary because I had bottom of turn. So that was my event. I ended up finishing 16th out of 40. From personal perspective, I made many basic errors. The thing I found with my Eldar is I got to a point where I was playing it as well as I could. I wasn't making any silly mistakes. With here, I was so focused on like what I could do with my army. I was kind of just making basic errors. My brain was overloaded, I guess you would say. So that is something that I would hope will reduce in time. It was a completely different style. I'm so used to being able to go forward and screen and move block and all that sort of thing, and just not having that I found really tricky. And I'm sure I could get used to it in time, but it will be quite a slow process, and I don't particularly enjoy it as well. So for that reason, this list didn't quite click with me. In terms of the army, I found managing the CP quite tricky. There were times where I wanted to do a CP reroll, and I would, and it would or I'd fail a charge and I'd have to CP reroll it, and it would have a knock-on effect, which really affected the game down the line, in terms of either miss and rapid or armor contempt, that sort of thing. In terms of the list, Dread Knights are okay. They're still middling. Not having many resources is definitely an issue for me personally. And learning, I think this has to be more aggressive and knowing when to push and break down a side, and that isn't something I necessarily have ever done particularly well. So for that reason, I kind of don't really think I'm going to continue with this style of list with 5 Dread Knights. Dread Knights were fine, don't get me wrong, but I'd much rather have more stuff. So that's kind of my thoughts on that list. In terms of the matrix, so this is my first attempt at a matrix. So what you're going to see here is I'm going to be trying to estimate the scores I believe on a 0 to 20 in teams. So for those who don't know, it starts at 10 all, and then for every 5 points you win by, you get a point up and your opponent gets a point down. Okay, so if you win by 6, you would win 11-9, basically. And if you win by 50, you win 20-0. So the CSM matchup, especially with the points drops that are coming, I think might be quite rough because they're going to have lots of stuff and they're going to have a lot of heavy shooting. I think that could be an issue for Grey Knight. So I put it down as a 7. I think it's still going to be close, but I put it down as 7. I think Chaos Knights is really drawish. I put it down as an 11. World Eaters, I know I lost it like 14-6, but I do believe it is a win. If Angron doesn't come back, it's definitely a win. If he does come back, you just got to get it right. But I do feel like we're favoured in World Eaters just on paper. The Deathwatch game, if you build like that, it's just a drawish army, so it's always going to be a draw. And obviously, Grey Knights is a draw. So it wasn't great for building up a matrix picture, but hopefully that kind of I'm going to be able to expand on this as we go along, really, and hopefully build up that picture. But if you have any other thoughts or experiences on these matchups, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the World Eaters matchup is tricky and everyone loses it, and I won't feel as bad about myself. So yeah, just let me know, really, in the comments. So that was that event. Great event. Lots of learning done. Here are 3 units I think you should have a look at. Brother Captain Stern. Really boring character. However, he gets back up on a 2-up. That's very good for mission play. So if you can put him in an annoying place for 90 points, you're going to get 2 lives. So if you can put him in a place where opponent's not going to be able to kill him twice in turn, you're going to get extra value out of him. Okay, so 90 points, Brother Captain Stern, see if you can get him in. This is a unit I'm trying. Brother Captain with Paladins. Okay, Paladins obviously have the -1 to wounds and hit on 2s rather than Terminators who can bring back models, have lethal hits, but hit on 3s and are higher obsec. So Brother Captain, what he does is he gives the Paladins sustained on with psychic weapons. So that's all the Psy cannons in the list in that unit and all their combat weapons. So sustained 1 on that. Gives you a bit of output, doesn't it? So I'm going to be trying that unit. And then finally, Purgation Squads. I certainly didn't even think of them until one of my teammates was talking about them. But actually, you know what? Maybe 1 or 2 units of Purgation Squads by a wall with flamers, indirect flaming the shit out of orcs and that sort of thing. It feels like we're starting to move towards a horde meta. So check out those Purgation Squads. Give them a go. Let me know what you think. I would like to start trying them at some point. I think those are 3 units that maybe we could do with having another look at because I think actually they've got a bit of play. So finally, we've got a scrim against Luxembourg coming up, and I've completely revamped my list, and this is what I'm going for. So I've got a Brother Captain with 10 Paladins and Sigil of Exigence. Okay, it means I don't get the Drago charge, but the Sigil on 10 guys is so good. Like, imagine a situation: 10 Paladins, 3-inch deep strike away, move block something, fire their whatever 5-6 side cannons into that unit or stuff, kill it, and then you move towards me. I'm going to miss. You don't move towards me, but shoot me. I sigil to a new part of the board. I think that's a really good play. So I'm going to try that. I've then got 2 units of strikes and 2 units of interceptors, just for more mission play. 5 Terminators with all the good stuff, the Flamer, the Apothecary, the Banner. 15 OC in that unit. That's really nice and irritating to deal with. Gone for 2 Nemesis Dread Knights this time. I feel 2 is probably the only number I want, actually. And finally, Castellan Crow 10 Purifiers. Let's give them a go. Let's see what they're like. I hear orcs don't like anti-infantry. Wraiths with Technomancers don't like anti-infantry 2+. The Flame as well. You get 4 Flamers in there. It's a big unit to 3-inch away. You can snake it around places, blap a load of stuff, and then you move towards me and I miss it away. It's that second brick, basically. I'm trying to build lists with 2 bricks in. It might be 10 Paladins and 10 Terminators. We'll see. But that's what we can do. So I'll let you know how that goes. And I think we'll be playing in the next week or 2. I played 1 game into a coaching client so far, into Tyranids. And the problem with Tyranids is they just can't kill Grey Knights. So it was a success, shall we say. And it was quite fun to play the list. So I'm looking forward to playing this list. I was like, oh, I got so much stuff. So, looking forward to trying that out. So, as always, I can't actually see a time, so I don't know how long this video is, but I've actually got to go to work very shortly now. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you've made it to the end. Like, comment, subscribe. Let's get that community building up. Join the Discord. Link is in the description. And next time I will talk about what or how I've been preparing for our upcoming international team tournament. That's going to be at the end of May. We came fourth as a team at the last one, which we were really proud of because there are a lot of teams there. And this time, I would say prep is in an interesting place for us at the moment. Some of us are going to be trying brand new factions for my specific team, but I'm going to kind of fill you in on how we've been thinking about Grey Knights in terms of the team, and might even tell you what my list is. Depends when I film it. Okay, but thanks a lot for watching. Take care, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.